Regrettably, it seems that someone with your disability is deemed unnecessary. Endeavor to lead the finest life possible, but what does that mean? A lone sheet of paper rested on the table, unmistakably directed towards me. In contrast to my sister, I entered the world deprived of the ability to move both legs, a situation that probably bothered him. Subsequently, my father's voice emerged from my smartphone. Hello, is this Alice? Have you come across the letter? Indeed, I have, but that's the reality, see you. Hold on, what is required of me? Clearly, what's the essence of this letter? It mirrors the exact sentiments. I am weary of nurturing a daughter like you. Do not concern yourself with me. The conversation ended abruptly. In desperation, pondering my next move, I opted to reach out to my mother. Hello, Mom. Evidently, you've stumbled upon the letter. It seems I'm merely an inconvenience due to my disability, even labeled as a monster. Understood, but do not fret. What do you mean? Because you are? 10 years had elapsed since that startling revelation from my mother. Following that, my father appeared at the upscale apartment I inhabit, questioning, how is it possible for someone with your disability to reside in such an establishment? Should I enlighten you? Subsequently, I unveiled the truth to him, leading to his mental breakdown and extreme suffering. My name is Alice, and I have reached 28 years of age. Currently, I enjoy a serene existence on the 57th floor of a luxury apartment building. Nevertheless, arriving at this stage was rife with challenges, primarily due to being born with a progressive muscle disease. I vividly recall my father's words from my kindergarten years. Why were you born this manner? Is this your fault? Rose was born free of any issues. Rose, my elder sister by 4 years, was oblivious to these family disputes. At that time, I could overhear my parents' discussions from my adjacent room in case of emergencies. Even at a young age, I was aware that they were voicing grievances about me. One shouldn't utter such words. Well, then, assume her care from this point forward. Absurd. Just handle it, will you? Silently, I enveloped myself with a blanket, and from that moment, their treatment towards me noticeably soured. They barely acknowledged me when I spoke. The root cause must have been my congenital leg disability. Henceforth, my mother endeavored to protect me from stress. Nonetheless, I pursued my capabilities independently and never lamented my condition, significantly shaped by my sister's perspective. Apologies for waking late and oversleeping a tad, sorry. That's fine, I've somewhat managed to dress myself. Allow me to assist. No, focus on preparing yourself first. From the beginning of elementary school, my sister has been integral to my morning routine. My father, critical of her assistance, would often lament, how long will this continue? I'm nearly ready. Alice is capable of managing herself, isn't she? Indeed, I am. As I got dressed, my sister would discreetly lend a hand, dodging our father's watchful eye. Apologies for the earlier inconvenience. It's all right. I shouldn't always depend on you. I can't always rely on you, I said. Then, my sister hugged me. What's this all of a sudden, Alice? I'll protect you. Then, I'll also work hard so I can protect you too. It felt like our bond as sisters deepened. We tried not to talk much in front of our father, showing that we got along well would only invite his comments. Well then, I'm off. Yes, take care. Father would go to work on holidays several times a month. Those days were heaven for me. Normally, if I played games or had fun, he would unreasonably get angry at me. Dad isn't here today, so let's play a lot. That's okay, right? Sure, but don't overdo it. I know. Then, I enjoyed playing games with my sister in the living room. It must have been about 2 hours later. At this time, my mother had gone out shopping. I heard the sound of the entrance door opening and thought my mother had returned. But what are you doing? I turned around at the sound of my father's voice. Dad, why are you here? Aren't you at work? I came back because I forgot something. Where's Mom? She went shopping. And what are you two doing? Tell me. Looking into my father's eyes, my body froze in fear. It felt as if my entire body had turned to stone. Seeing this, my sister tried to protect me. We were playing a game, but it was me who invited Alice. Alice did nothing wrong. Really? Yes, really. Then, my father grabbed my sister's arm. I thought my sister was going to be hit. At that moment, I felt a duty to protect her. I said I wanted to play. Oh, so please don't hit her. So, it was you after all. Go to your room. Yes. I headed to my room as told. The only consolation was that the house was built to be wheelchair accessible. I heard my father shouting. I regretted not being able to do anything as I was thinking. The door to my room opened. I braced myself, thinking it was my father, but it was my mother. Are you okay? I'm okay, but what about Rose? Well, she's okay. I felt something was off with my mother's words and tried to head to the living room. Where are you going? I have to help Rose. It's really okay. If Alice goes, it might upset your father again. Okay, I'll stay here. My mother's advice was reasonable. My going might only make the situation worse. I decided to trust my mother's words that everything was okay. I'm sorry. I should have been stronger. My father had a domineering personality, so my mother was always desperate not to upset him. It's not your fault. Thank you for everything. After a while, my sister came to my room. Rose, Dad went back to work, so it's all okay now. Yeah, but did he say anything to you? A little, but it's nothing Alice should worry about. I'm okay. My sister always kept a smile, no matter the situation, even though she was also suffering. In addition, my mother always tried to intervene and protect me from my father's outbursts. I was always being helped and desperately sought ways to not burden them. This dynamic shifted when my sister entered middle school. She began distancing herself from me. Until then, she had assisted me with daily tasks like dressing and using the bathroom. But as she grew occupied with club activities and friends, I realized I had to persevere. I had to try harder. By this time, not only my legs, but also the grip strength in both hands had considerably weakened. Holding heavy objects became a challenge, yet I refused to surrender. One day, as I was organizing my room and placing books on the shelf, disaster struck. The shelf wobbled under the unexpected weight, and items tumbled around me. Ouch! I need to clean this up quickly. However, confined to a wheelchair, reaching the floor was beyond me. As I struggled, the door burst open. What's all this noise? What's happening here? It was the scenario I dreaded most. My father should not witness this mess. This is? I stammered, unable to articulate my thoughts promptly, which my father interpreted as excuses. Who do you think will clean this up? I couldn't recall a time when my father had contributed to any chores. Of course, these thoughts remained unspoken. Really, why do you always create such unnecessary messes? He sighed, visibly frustrated. He likely couldn't grasp the impact of his dismissive glare. His reprimands were relentless. Unlike Rose, you can't achieve anything. Do you comprehend? True, I might lack my sister's capabilities, but I was determined to manage independently. Prepared for reprimand, I voiced my desires to my father, hoping, albeit dimly, he would understand. Things I can accomplish, huh? This time, his reaction was laughter. You utter some amusing notions, as if there's anything you're capable of doing. I had steeled myself against harsh critiques, but this was sheer negation. My father's laughter persisted, displaying no paternal warmth. From that instant, I ceased reasoning, merely allowing time to tick by. Hey, are you listening? I offered no response. What's the matter with you, creepy? With that, he exited, leaving me alone amid the disarray. I wept, resolving never to shed tears again, despite my youth. Henceforth, my mother predominantly attended to me, as my father remained indifferent, seemingly uncaring. Don't you feel feverish? Do I? You should rest today. You're okay, but it's best not to risk it. I earnestly tried convincing her otherwise, yet she firmly suggested I remain home, arguing it could be problematic if an incident occurred. Consequently, I missed school, particularly ironic since my father was absent that day. Truthfully, I wished to attend, but fate had other plans. I wanted to avoid spending the day alone with him. Unexpectedly, something happened. Are you okay? My father entered my room and spoke to me, but I pretended to be asleep to avoid interacting with him. Father didn't leave the room. I covered myself with the blanket, feeling my heart pounding as I waited. I'll leave this here for you. After a while, I sat up. On the table, there were sports drinks and jelly. I couldn't help but feel happy. I had never experienced even this much from him. My mind was in turmoil. What was his purpose that day? Father checked on me several times. Each time, I pretended to be asleep. Are you okay? My mother returned from her part-time job. Yeah, I don't think I have a fever. What happened? Somehow, I felt like Father was being kind today. That's good. Good? What was she talking about? Actually, I asked your father to take care of you. Really? It seems like it was okay then. Okay, as in we didn't really talk, but I was surprised. I had a firm talk with him. Hopefully, he'll start being nicer to you. I felt mixed emotions. Just when I thought I had managed not to be disturbed, I didn't know what to do afterward. Just as my mother said, he began to show more concern for me. He started to take care of me actively, and we even began to have a bit of conversation. It seems like you and Dad are getting along better, huh? Does it look that way? I'd be happy if you two got along, but after everything that's happened. Yeah, I understand. It's not easy. I also want to play with you. It's okay. I immediately smiled at my sister. I was hoping that my relationship with my father would improve. When I entered middle school, my father's attitude towards me became stricter. I knew why. It was because Rose was preparing for her exams. I thought it was understandable, but I realized it wasn't just that. I need to go to the bathroom. I asked my father for help, even though I could go by myself if I tried. I deliberately chose to ask him. I'm busy right now, so it's impossible. You're in middle school now. Shouldn't you be able to go to the bathroom by yourself? I thought to myself, this must be the real side of my father. Everything up to now felt like a fleeting dream, and there were more changes to come. My mother also started to become as cold as my father. Mom, I need help with something. Sorry, I'm busy right now, maybe later. I couldn't ask my sister for help. Eventually, it became clear that I was a low priority to everyone. Even when I asked for something, I was ignored. Even though I had grown since becoming a middle school student, not being able to interact with my family was hard. From now on, Alice will eat in her room. What? Why? All right. My mother and sister remained silent. Thus, I began to eat alone in my room more frequently. One of the reasons for this was the results from a hospital visit. My condition was not improving. The disease was progressing. This was a decision made by my father after seeing those results. I started to question if I really belonged to this family. Why only Alice? I heard such a conversation while studying. Just get ready quickly. If Alice isn't going, then I'll stay home too. Are you sure? Your first choice for high school is a private school, right? Yes, but stop this, please. Are you opposing me too? You can stay if you want, but then forget about the private school. I realized I had overheard something terrible. Finally, the mystery seemed to unravel. Father had been using the exams as leverage to manipulate my mother and sister. Until now, I had never harbored any hatred towards my father, but this was going too far. However, what could I, barely able to move properly, do? From that day on, that's all I could think about. I'll be out for a bit. I'm sorry, Alice. I'm okay. I could hear my father's voice from afar, seemingly urging them to hurry. See you. Better go quickly. I put on a brave face to avoid making them worry further about me. They began to leave without me regularly. As this continued, I got used to it. Initially, they tried to hide their outings from me, but at some point, my father no longer bothered to conceal it. All right, let's eat out today. Come on, let's go. Isn't this too sudden? Yeah, I decided. Hurry up. Of course, Alice stays. My sister, sitting next to me, tried to speak up against my father, but I grabbed her arm to stop her. I'm fine, go on. It looks like Alice understands better. Hey, do you know what they say about me at work? You have no idea. Father began to talk about how pitiful he felt. I've been feeling miserable at work, being known as the parent of a daughter with a disability. Do you understand how frustrating that is? As if I could understand. Even if that were true, taking it out on his daughter like this is utterly inappropriate for a father. But as a middle school student, there was no way I could stand up to my parents and live independently, especially given my condition. The difference with and without support was day and night. I'll manage on my own. I'm okay. My mother and sister looked worried. Besides, if I went with you, I'd just be in the way, and there are the stares from others too. Although my sister wasn't fully convinced by my words, she left with our parents. I knew opposing my father at this point was dangerous. It seemed like a wise decision. Even after I became a high school student, my father's attitude towards me remained unchanged. However, an event occurred that made all the previous troubles seem minor. Sigh, what should I do? I watched my family leave and return to my room, wondering how long I would be trapped in this life. It was during the summer vacation of my 3rd year in middle school. I'm sorry, but could you look after Alice for about 5 days? Aren't you going together? See, Alice is also a student preparing for exams and apparently wants to focus on her studies. Is that okay? Yeah, then leave it to me. And so, I was left in the care of my grandparents, lying as naturally as breathing. Father didn't seem to feel any guilt towards his own parents. Watching my father wave goodbye with a smile, I felt an indescribable fear. Once my parents were out of sight, my grandmother began to question me. It's just us here. You don't have to hold back. Huh, are you really okay with not going? If I'm there, Mom and Rose can't enjoy themselves. That's the last thing I want, I replied emphatically. Alice, you're so kind. Not really, but here, you don't need to worry about anyone's gaze. You can do as you like. Yeah, thank you. Grandmother might have seen right through me. Still, she didn't probe any further. It was truly comfortable being there. As a middle schooler, I lacked the power and wisdom to change my situation, and being scrutinized by others wasn't exactly pleasant, so I was grateful for my grandmother's warm vigilance. 3 days passed, and my mother and sister came to pick me up. Oh, just the 2 of you? I'm sorry, my husband went back ahead. I see. Was Alice okay? She was a very good girl. Here's a piece of advice from me. Make sure to give her lots of attention. Yes! I listened to my mother and grandmother's conversation from behind the door. On the way back, I'm okay, you know. You don't have to push yourself. That's right. We're on your side, Alice. I know, but I don't want you to get into trouble because of me. Upon returning home, I continued to receive cold treatment from my father. It was back to the usual daily routine. Normally, my heart would have broken, but with the support of my mother and sister, I barely managed to endure. However, perhaps because they were ordered by my father, they began to conspicuously avoid me. Being ignored by my father was one thing, but having my sister and mother start to act like him was especially painful, as if my heart was being squeezed. It felt as though I was completely alone. It's okay, I can do this. Eventually, these words became like a mantra to me. From then on, I tried to stay in my room as much as possible when at home. I figured if I stayed in my room, I wouldn't have to interact with anyone and could avoid unnecessary distress. However, I realized that this was a mistake. It was a Sunday in the spring of my 2nd year of high school when I woke up. The house seemed unusually quiet. Heading to the living room, I found a piece of paper on the table. Unfortunately, we don't need a disabled person like you. Try your best to live. What is this? There was a piece of paper on the table, addressed to me indeed. I couldn't freely use my legs, but that was no reason for such treatment. Perhaps my father had reached his limit. Then, a call from my father came through on my smartphone. Hello, is that Alice? Did you see the letter? I saw it, but... Well, that's the situation. See you. Wait a minute, what do you want? Obviously, what's this letter about? It's exactly as it says. I'm tired of raising a daughter like you. Don't worry about me. With that, the call was abruptly ended. Desperately thinking about what to do, I decided to call my mother next. Hello, Mom. You saw the letter, didn't you? I'm just a nuisance because I'm disabled and even called a monster. I see, but don't worry. Huh? Because you're not the daughter of such a worthless man. What are you talking about? I don't understand. Listen carefully. Call this number I'm about to give you. Wait a minute, explain properly. I'm sorry, your father is nearby. I'll call you back later. I was simply stunned. If what my mother said was true, then I was. What did it mean to not be my father's child in the first place? Pondering gave me no answers, so I called the number my mother gave me. The person who answered introduced themselves as a lawyer named Lawyer Albert. I was told by my mother to call you. I see. I would like to discuss this matter further with you. Thus, I went to the law firm as instructed. There, I was told about the meaning of my mother's words and learned about my true origins. Everything was shocking at first, and I couldn't believe it, but it seemed that my mother and sister had always hidden the truth for my sake. Afterward, I started living on my own, thanks to Lawyer Albert. I was living comfortably without any issues. 10 years flew by since that revelation from my mother, and during these years, there were also happy moments. After graduating from university, Rose also started living on her own. Rose, what's up? Sorry for suddenly calling. It seems like Dad has found out where you live. What? Just to let you know, either Mom nor I told him anything. I know. Even after moving away, I had been in contact with my mother and sister, of course, without letting my father know, so he's coming here probably. I see, all right. This might be a good chance for payback, right? What? I can live like this because of Mom and you, right? Maybe, but so let me give a little back. Plus, we have to think about Mom too. True. I also left home as if I was running away. It's not your fault, Rose. A week after the call from my sister, just as she said, my father showed up at my apartment. The intercom rang, and I went to answer it. Yes, it's been a while, Alice. What are you doing here? How can a disabled person like you live in such a high-rise apartment? Well, why do you think? What kind of way is that to talk to your father? I glanced behind my father and saw my mother standing there, looking apologetic. It seemed she had also suffered since I left. Shall I tell you then? I explained to my father how I was able to live like this. Then, he started hurling abuses at my mother. What's the meaning of this? I knew nothing about it. I wanted to tell you at first, but you made a disgusted face when you found out Alice was disabled, didn't you? Of course, who wouldn't? A child from someone else and disabled at that. I was shocked when Lawyer Albert told me, thinking my heart might stop from the impact. According to Lawyer Albert, I was the child of my mother's close friend. My biological father had died in an accident, and my birth mother was terminally ill with cancer, with not much time left. My current mother was who she turned to in her time of need. Thus, I was adopted. Moreover, my birth mother had left a considerable amount of money to ensure I wouldn't be in trouble. The apartment I was living in was originally my real parents' home. Isn't it wrong to blame Mom? Shut up. No, I won't. I also know about the terrible things you've done to her. Even after I moved out, my father's tyranny didn't stop. Previously, I was the target, but now it was my mother's turn, right? I looked to my mother for agreement. She nodded silently. There's no proof. What if I said there is? I took out my smartphone and played a recording. It captured my father's verbal abuse and physical aggression towards my mother. How about that? You understand now, right? When did you? I've been in contact all along, even after moving out. You didn't notice, did you? Well, you wouldn't. Damn it, no matter how much you shout, it's useless. With all this evidence, you know what's coming next, right? What are you planning? I looked at my mother and signaled with my eyes. I'm divorcing you. What? It's obvious, isn't it? But don't worry, Mom and I will live here together. I won't allow such selfishness. I don't care about your opinion, Dad. Father probably didn't know, but this had been planned for a long time. Being disabled and still messing around, Father, seemingly very agitated, attempted to resort to violence. That's when it happened. Please stop, such a voice came from the back of the house. Who are you? This person is my husband. Husband, nice to meet you. My name is Charlie. Father, surprised, lowered his raised hand. Did you know about this? Mother nodded. Of course, even Rose knows. Without the consent of the parents, you do whatever as you please, huh? I'm already an adult. There's no problem. So, could you please leave now? If only he had left then, but as expected, he hadn't given up yet. Wait, you inherited other assets as well, right? So what? As your parent, I have the right to receive some of that inheritance. It was ludicrous. There was no such right. I almost laughed at my desperate father. What's so funny? Because you're saying something so off base. Father stomped around in frustration. It's going to be tough from here on, but good luck. There will be compensation, and I've also talked to Grandma and Grandpa. Relying on them will be futile. You went that far. Father became meekly submissive. Maybe he was reflecting on his actions. There's nothing more to talk about. Goodbye. Wait, please, I'm begging you. Father performed a perfect prostration, throwing away his pride and bowing his head to someone he had neglected. I wondered how that felt. I thought about such things, but no matter what he did, my feelings wouldn't change. It's pointless. Just go away. Even after I beg with all my heart. Yes, if you're not leaving, shall I call the police? There's evidence, and you might get arrested. Frightened by my words, Father fled the scene as if running away. As the tension eased, I let out a big sigh. Well done. Thanks. It was quite nerve-wracking. But are you really okay with this? Living here together, you mean? Yes, that's not a problem. We've discussed it and decided together, right? Exactly, we're free here. I also shared the outcome with my sister. That's great. See, it turned out okay, right? I actually wanted to go there too. Just knowing that is enough for me. Come visit sometime. I will. I'll make time. Thus, my mother and I were freed from the shackles named a father. There was still some finalization left, but on that day, the three of us celebrated. Later, my mother and I visited Lawyer Albert with all the evidence already in place. Things proceeded smoothly. Thank you for everything. Not at all, this is my job after all. Please make sure my father gets the punishment he deserves. The matter if he's under arrest or not will be up to the police, but leave the compensation issues to me. 2 weeks after the consultation, my parents were officially divorced. Now, my mother wouldn't have to endure verbal abuse or physical harm from my father. I felt a true sense of joy following the divorce's completion. We transferred all of my mother's possessions to our apartment. Thank you. Really, it's no bother. This is the least I can do. I am indebted to you for all the support you've provided up until now. You need not return the favor. This is my choice. With those words, we embarked on a new chapter in our lives, including my mother. Rose also began to make more frequent visits whenever she could spare the time. At last, we could live in tranquility. Thank you for everything, Rose. Of course, whether we're related by blood or not, Alice, you remain my unique and cherished sister. Yeah. I observed my mother appearing concerned. What's the matter? Ah, it's your father. He called the phone. Let me deal with this. I took my mother's smartphone and responded to the call. I was mistaken. Can you return home? Mom is not returning. Is that clear, Alice? I erred previously. Grant me another chance to amend things. Sorry, that's out of the question, under any circumstances, and cease all contact with us. I ended the call and promptly blocked his number before returning the phone to my mother. Was everything all right? Of course, so don't fret. It appears my father had resigned from his position at the company where he was employed. We remain unaware of his current circumstances. He could be existing in solitude, engulfed in loneliness. However, his whereabouts and activities are now irrelevant to us. Conversely, we are relishing our time, content as a family. Experiencing this freedom is a novel sensation in my life. I am keen to continue along this joyful journey with my family.